Oh, hi, and love me in Budapest. Well, welcome to the place, the thing, and I have a wonderful playmate today. Will, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine.
So glad you came on my show, and everybody says that that shirt is just gorgeous. You wore it especially.
I did. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to put on a nice shirt for you.
Okay.
Talk about Bay Street Theater.
Yes, Bay Street Theater. What have you got to do with Bay Street Theater?
I'm the Associate Artistic Director, which means I work very closely with Scott Schwartz, the Artistic Director, in creating the season and then helping to execute each season.
Which is Bay Street Theater is in Sag Harbor.
That's correct, right in the heart of Sag Harbor.
And it's called Bay Street Theater because it's on Bay Street.
That's also correct.
I just wanted to
Yes.
show how smart I am. And in case anybody wants to go there.
Easy to remember the location. It's right in the name.
Yes. And you have a new production now?
We do. We have the second show of the season. It's called Intimate Apparel. It's by a wonderful playwright named Lynn Nottage, who's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for playwriting. She's actually the first woman ever to win 2 Pulitzer Prizes for playwriting in America.
Boy,
She's a major writer.
you can't underestimate us women.
I know. She's terrific, and this particular play is a beautiful play of hers. It was last produced, there was a major production in New York. It was about 10 years ago now, produced by the Roundabout Theater. And it did very well in New York, and we think it'll do very well out here too as well.
So it's a revival.
It's a revival, yes.
What type of a show is it?
It is. Takes place in New York in 1905, so it's a sort of a historical play, but everyone is fictionalized.
Is it drama?
It is, as people like to say now, a dramedy. There's a lot of humor in it, there's a lot of drama as well, and it has an unbelievably wonderful cast of actors. The leading actor plays the leading character is Kelly Mccreary, who's on the wonderful show Grey's Anatomy. She's been on for the last couple of seasons, and we're very lucky to have her. She's a really wonderful actor, and it's a beautiful story. It follows a seamstress in New York in 1905. And examines all of the relationships that she creates through the beautiful clothes that she makes by hand or with a very early sewing machine of that time. And so we meet people in the sort of low culture of New York and people in the very high culture of New York. And there's also a love story as well, because she's also searching for love in the course of the play. Mm-hmm. But it's a terrific piece of work.
Is it a 2-act play?
It's a 2-act play, a full-length 2-act play. Mm-hmm. And
when do you open?
We've just started previews a couple of nights ago. We opened officially this Saturday, so very excited about that. And it'll run basically throughout the month of July. Yeah.
Is it how many nights?
We play 8 shows a week. So the only night there isn't a show is Monday. That's when we're dark. And there are shows every evening, and 2 shows on Wednesday. We have a matinee and an evening on Wednesday, and a matinee and an evening on Sunday. Cool. And we have 2 early curtains for people who want to come a little earlier and get out a little earlier. The Tuesday and Wednesday nights are at 7. And we also have a talk back every Tuesday night, too. We have a special guest, or the actors themselves come out and talk to the audience, and the audience can ask some questions.
Audience like that.
Yeah, no, it's a great talk.
And then you could get tickets online or at the theater.
That is correct. You can get tickets at the Bay Street website, or you can also come to the physical box office right in the theater. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so that's happening now. Should I talk about the rest of the season? Some other things we have going on?
Of course.
One thing that's starting this month, which we're very proud of, is we have a music series called Music Mondays. So pretty much every Monday in July and August, we have wonderful top-tier singers come in and perform in very intimate cabaret-style performances. And we have people like Betty Buckley. Betty Buckley is coming this Monday. We have Jared Spector and his wife. His wife played Eliza here last. Did you see My Fair Lady? She was the star of My Fair Lady. That was Kelly Barrett, and her husband Jared Spector are coming out. We have Lorna Luft, who's the daughter of Judy Garland, who's coming out for a night. We have Billy Porter, who is the star of Kinky Boots on Broadway. He's coming out. We have Ben Vereen, a longtime wonderful star, coming out.
Big names.
Yep, and Stephen Schwartz, the composer, is going to do an evening with us with a bunch of his favorite singers.
Is he related to Scott?
He is, in fact, Scott's father.
Oh, my gosh.
The distinguished composer of Godspell and Wicked and Pippin.
Oh, really?
He's a lovely man. He's just a terrific
He's
man.
a composer.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And, yeah, so that's the series. And then as our final main stage production, we're going to have a new production of Shakespeare's As You Like It.
Oh, that's a very popular play.
It is. It's one of his most loved comedies.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a wonderful new version. In fact, speaking of Stephen Schwartz is going to write the music for the songs that occur in the play and for all the incidental music that happens. So we're very lucky to have such a distinguished composer collaborating with a very distinguished director named John Doyle, who will direct the production. Now, John Doyle is also very renowned and has won a Tony Award. He recently directed the revival of The Color Purple on Broadway, which was a terrific production, which I saw. And he's very famous for his sort of intimate productions of Stephen Sondheim's musicals. And his version of Sweeney Todd was also on Broadway with Michael Cerveris. And he also did Company, as I recall, on Broadway. Anyway, he's a very inventive, very smart director, and it's going to be a fun evening. It's set in the 30s in the sort of jazz world of the 20s and 30s, and I met some of the cast. And actually, I can give you this is going to be a scoop for your show that I'm going to give you.
Yeah?
This is new information, never before heard in public, which is one of the actors in the show is an extremely distinguished actress named Ellen Burstyn, we've just found out is going to join us. And I think she's an Academy Award winner, but of course she's done many, many wonderful movies and plays.
Ellen Burstyn, she's quite famous.
So yeah, she'll be playing actually a role that's traditionally played by a man, Jay Quees.
Oh.
And we're very excited. I think she's going to bring something really interesting to it. And I met all the actors. It's a fantastic company of actors.
Great. Well, Will, where are you from?
I am from Texas originally.
Texas.
Yes.
San Antonio.
Just outside of San Antonio, actually.
Yeah. And how did you get here to New York?
Well, a couple of different ways. I had a cousin who lived in New York City, and we would visit, my family would visit him in the summers. Actually, when he would come out to the Hamptons in August, we would go and live in his apartment in Manhattan, and I got to know New York City and fell in love with it. And when I had a chance to go to college, I went to a college in upstate New York.
Where?
In Ithaca.
Ithaca.
Cornell there. And I fell in love with New York State and New York City, and I never looked back. I just kept
You never went
going.
back?
I go back to visit, but I've never really lived back in Texas since I was in high school.
You still have relatives in San Antonio?
I'm not in San Antonio. Well, my mother's in San Antonio. My brothers and sisters are all in Houston.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, no, one brother's in San Antonio.
Yeah, my son lived there for many years.
Yes.
His son is still there. So from Manhattan, how did you get to the Hamptons?
I got here because Scott Schwartz, when he was offered the job of running Bay Street Theater, realized he probably needed some help, and it's a big job.
You mean you knew him before?
I knew him before. We had met actually through his father. His father had been a supporter of a project I directed, and he invited Scott to come see it. Scott saw it and really liked the work.
What did you do?
It was a new musical called The Blue Flower. And
Where did you do that? In Manhattan?
We did it at American Repertory Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh.
And then we did it in New York also in Manhattan at Second Stage. But Scott came and saw it in Cambridge and really responded to it and suggested we get together, which we did, and for coffee, and we talked, and we realized we had similar tastes and interests. And he ended up offering me a job out here to help him run the theater, and I directed a show last summer.
So you have other experience besides Bay Street?
That's true, yes.
Let's start from the beginning. Did you, out of college, you started in the theater business?
I did. Before we talk about me some more, before I forget, I want to mention one more thing in our season, if that's okay.
Well, okay, we could go back and forth.
Okay. We're doing something sort of special this summer. For the last 3 summers, we have done a free outdoor Shakespeare presentation in Mesheshuet Park. I'm probably saying it wrong. I can never say it right.
Yes.
But you know what I'm talking about. It's a hard name to say. But I hope everyone knows what I'm talking about. This summer, because we're doing a Shakespeare...
Mesheshuet Park.
Mesheshuet, that's
or
it. Because we're doing a production of Shakespeare on our main stage, and a full production for the first time, we're going to do something a little different, although it's related to Shakespeare. We're doing a musical, a classic musical called Kissin Kate by Cole Porter. And it's a wonderful score, of course, but it's based in the play. The company is doing a musical version of Taming of the Shrew. So there's some Shakespeare in it, because they're doing the play based on Taming of the Shrew. But of course, it's all about what happens off stage, and it's really wonderful and funny and tuneful.
Well, it's really good to have Stephen Schwartz as a relative.
It is. It doesn't hurt.
Who does, a lot of original scores.
Yes, yes. But anyway, so that's happening August 25th and 26th. It's free. It's a full production with a full cast.
So you're going to have a lot of ads also.
There will be ads, and we're fortunate to have Melissa Errico, a Broadway star, to play the lead in the show. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to work with her. I'll be directing it. She'll be playing Kate, exactly.
Playing Kate,
exactly.
Yes.
And it's going to be a lot of fun.
So I was asking what other experience you had before you came to Bay Street. You started saying.
Yes, I did some theater. In college, in Ithaca, there was a beautiful historic theater. It was an old vaudeville house, and I just loved it. And there was a couple of eccentric folks there who were trying to save it from the wrecking ball, because some people wanted to buy it and knock it down, and they were making a big stand to try to keep it going. And I worked there as a performer while I was in college and helped them keep the place going. Unfortunately, sadly, when I left college a few years later, I said, well, what happened to that theater? And it had been, in fact, knocked down and literally turned into a parking lot, which really broke my heart. But I had some great memories there, and I wasn't a theater major, but I did, continue to find a way to do plays, particularly my senior year, and I met some wonderful playwrights, and they wanted to start a theater company in New York City to do new plays, and I said, well, that sounds good to me, and I sort of followed them into New York City, and we did new plays for several years. Then I decided to go to graduate school, which I did for theater at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and I got a master's degree in directing. And then after that, I just started working for various people, doing various projects over the years, and I've worked at universities, and I've worked at Juilliard for several seasons as a guest director, and I've worked for multiple companies in New York City and also regionally, and that's sort of been my gig. And I've done musicals and classical plays and new plays, all of which interest me.
So all these years, you made your living out of working with various theaters.
I did. I've been very fortunate in that way. It's challenging, and it is.
It is.
Always looking for the next gig.
So how do you like working with new plays?
I find new plays very exciting, and it's great. That's one thing I really appreciate about what Scott has done at Bay Street, is he's made this very firm and ongoing commitment to new work. And every summer, for the last 4 summers, we've done at least 1 and sometimes 2 world premieres as part of our season. New plays, and in a couple of cases, new musicals. And I think it's wonderful. It's wonderful for the artist to have a place to have their work produced for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful for our audience to be part of the excitement of being part of that development
Any of
process.
those new plays made it bigger that you have worked with
Yes,
previously?
I think in almost all cases they've all been published.
Really?
By Sam French or somebody like that. And they've had other productions around the country. So we're very excited about that and very, again, happy.
But not all plays have to go to Broadway. There are other avenues.
Of course. And, the number, particularly of straight plays, not musicals, that go to Broadway is, of course, very small. But I think, our work over the last 4 summers has helped raise the profile of Bay Street and brought some wonderful artists in who are sort of nationally and internationally renowned artists. And the level of work, I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but I think it's been quite high, and audiences have responded, which I've appreciated. We've gotten a lot of good, positive feedback. So we're going to keep doing it. and keep putting the new plays out there into the world and revisiting wonderful old plays, or some of which we might go back, dip into the classical canon, but in the case of Intimate Apparel, it's a more of a recent American, what I would say will eventually be an American classic, this play, and try to keep a certain variety of work coming to the audiences in the East End.
So where do you think you get your talent from? Is
Well,
it in your family?
You know, I have to tell you, my father was a sort of song and dance man.
Oh.
He was a great lover of the theater, and a great lover of the theater his whole life. And he worked in, there was a sort of, it was the end of the summer stock, sort of what these call the straw hat circuit, that actually was, there was a brand, you know, it was mostly better known in the East Coast. But along where I grew up in the Southwest, there was also a string of theaters that had regular summer theater seasons, and my father would act with these, what were then sort of fading starlets, I would call them. They were people like Linda Darnell and Vivian Blaine, and they were not getting movie roles anymore, and they would go and do summer theater. And I have these wonderful memories of photos of my father acting in these plays, and they were, you know, sort of boulevard comedies.
A friend of mine knew Vivian Blaine quite intimately.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wonderful. And that's what got me started. I would watch him doing these shows, and I would get to go backstage during the intermission, and my mother would bring this, I remember this big, tall leather-covered thermos of coffee for him, and I would see the actors, you know, getting ready and bustling around, and it was, you know, very romantic and irresistible, and that was the beginning of my fascination.
And you started imitating them.
Yeah, basically. And I was fortunate enough to do a couple of shows with my father as an actor.
Really?
Yeah, so that was nice.
What did you do?
We did a production of Guys and Dolls together.
Oh.
And he was Nathan Detroit, and he was great.
When you said you did a production, you were in it or
I was in it. It was before I directed, and I was still just interested as an actor. And by the time I was directing, my father really wasn't performing anymore. But we just worked together a couple times as fellow actors on stage in Texas. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And have you done any writing yourself?
I have. I've done mostly adapting material. I've done several literary adaptations. I adapted.
Somebody told me once that that's very difficult to do.
It can be because the language, spoken dialogue, is different than, it just functions a little bit.
Oh, you mean you like from a book?
From a book.
You wanted to do
to do a play.
Yeah.
And so
I
to
tried
figure
that
out.
once.
Yeah. Some books have great dialogue. Some have
Yeah.
more literary dialogue. But I found it very rewarding, and I did a version of A Tale of Two Cities, which is one of my favorite.
Oh my
books.
God, that is hard.
It's big, very big. We had 21
And you made a
actors.
play out of it?
Yeah, we did a play.
Did you experience it?
Was it produced, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, it was produced in New York, and it was well received. I'd love to do it again. It's just a lot of actors. I have to actually figure out a way, because in that version we had about 20 actors, which is expensive. But if I could figure out the doubling, we could do it with fewer maybe and do it again. I'd love to. It's a beautiful story.
That's a big undertaking.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I've worked on several, and I did a musical based on the life of F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, and we did a piece about them, called
And
The Side
was
of
that
Paradise.
produced also?
That was produced also in New York City. And most recently I worked on an adaptation of The Marble Faun, which is a novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which most people don't know, but it's a beautiful book. And we adapted it, reset it in New Orleans in 1950 and made it a jazz musical, and that was done a couple of years ago. Yeah.
How long does it take you to do something like that?
New musicals take a little longer. These I've been fortunate to have happened fairly quickly, but it's probably the writing process and workshopping process is a couple of years, and then another year to sort of get it produced. So it's 3 to 4 year process. I mean, many musicals are more of a 7 to 10 year, which is really tough.
Did you say that you just had written a musical?
Yes. I mean, I'm not a composer.
Oh.
But I helped write the book, the script for the musical.
The script, and somebody else had
Someone else did the music and
like
lyrics.
Rodgers and Hart?
Yes, yes.
Did you try to get them?
Rodgers and Hart were not available, unfortunately, in this particular dimension, but that would be nice. They're talented guys.
Oh, but was it ever done into a book, like Samuel French?
It hasn't been published, but I'm working on it, so I hope someday it will be. Yeah,
but it
be
takes-
published and licensed.
Takes a lot of who you know.
Yes, no, true. No, it's true.
I always say it's not only what you know, but who you know.
Yes, unfortunately, that's often the case.
Yes, there's a lot of new stuff out there, and they're not all so great, and there are a lot of other stuff that has never been looked at.
Yes, no, it's, as someone once said to me, it's sarcastically, one thing about showbiz is it's always fair, which of course it's not, right? And it's quite the opposite. And sometimes you see something and you wonder, well, why is that produced?
Yes.
Or why is that published? But
Yeah.
there's often some story you don't know about why and how something came to be done. And
Yeah.
there's a backstory.
That's true. It's a lot goes into it. There's a lot of,
Yes.
like, suppose somebody hands you some new material, and that day you have a toothache.
You're
You
not
don't want
in
to
the right
look
mood.
at it,
Right,
so
right.
it gets rejected.
Yeah.
Something like that.
No, it's odd how things, and when I go into a theater myself, I'm always trying to be very open to whatever that experience is, and I'm still, even though I've been doing it for a while, excited each time when the lights go down, what might happen, what's going to happen, and,
Yes.
and maybe the day that I'm not excited about that, when the lights go down, then probably I'll have to quit, but I'm still excited about it,
So now with this new play, you said it's just about to open.
It'll open this Saturday.
And how long did it take from beginning to the end? You already had a complete play, but
Yes,
it took a long time.
in terms of the process, the rehearsal process. Well, it's being a summer theater, we don't have a super long rehearsal schedule. We have a new play every month. So the play rehearses about 3.5 weeks.
But somebody who gets the actors.
Right, so
have
you're right.
to-
So the process begins, and it depends. First you decide what the play is.
Yeah.
And once you figure that out, if it's already published, then you have to find out if the rights are available. Because there have been times when we've really wanted to do something, and then we find out, well, no, the rights aren't available because they're about to do a revival in New York. And when that happens, they usually stop anybody within 100 miles.
It has to be legal.
Right. But say you've got the rights and you've got your play. You need to find a director.
Yeah.
And once you find the director, then you're going to cast the play, and you have a casting process. We have a wonderful casting team, a firm that works with us called Stuart Whitley Casting, and they're just fantastic people. And we cast out of New York. We also do local auditions every year of an open call, and then the casting directors are in New York, and we do auditions there as well. And that process, that can take a while because, yes, they have auditions, and then sometimes they'll go to someone like Kelly Mccreary on Grey's Anatomy, and they have to go through her agent and find out if she's available and she's interested, and then she gets back and says,
So
yes, I'm
that
interested.
takes a while.
That's can be a weeks-long, months-long process.
Yeah.
And once you've got that done, and we get everybody in the rehearsal room, that's about 3.5 weeks. 3 weeks in New York, and then a week out here, roughly, to do the technical, rehearse all of the lights and the sound and how all the furniture moves. That happens out here.
People who just watch a play, they don't realize how much goes into it.
Yes, somebody mentioned for every minute on stage, it can be 100 hours of rehearsal. I mean, it's a lot of time that people don't
because
realize.
you mentioned the lighting and the sound.
Right, if you include all of the
that
technical
separate
rehearsals.
people and everything, yes.
And what was I going to say? Right, the technical rehearsal. Yes, and I was going to say, it's sort of ironic, but it's our job to make it seem effortless. When
Yes, of course,
the
yeah.
audience comes, you want them just to be involved in the story. You don't want them to think about, well, how are they doing this?
Yeah,
and that? They just go on the ride. And if
Yeah.
you're doing the job right, that's what they do. They just experience the story, it comes to them, it goes through them. And maybe after they're like, well, how did they do that exactly? But in the moment, they don't. And that's, it's ironic because it's only with a lot of work and creativity that can happen. But when it happens, it should feel effortless. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful to have you here and learn all about this new play and at Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor.
Yes.
And and we're all going to see it.
Yes, I hope everyone
And I
will
just
come.
want to thank LTV Studio and everybody who's involved in it to have this. And of course, I want to thank Will Pomerantz. I remembered your name.
Very good.
To come. And I just want to say that Jenna cut my hair in Kingston. So I probably have to go back to Kingston every month to have my hair cut.
Jenna did a very good job.
Yes, she did.
Right on to Jenna in
At
Kingston.
the Kingston Plaza. So now enjoy the summer,
Thank you.
and
It's an
hope to
exciting one.
meet Scott one day.
Yes, and see
And
you at Bay Street Theater,
the
yes.
Bay Street, and imagine the possibilities.
Yes,
What does that mean?
that's the sort of slogan for this year and
Oh,
for the season. And as you see in the graphic, there's a red curtain with hands pulling it open to see what's behind it.
oh
So
yeah, that's very
It's also the
clever.
theme for our gala, which is coming up this month on the 15th.
Did you design that?
That I did not. I have a few skills, but graphic design, unfortunately, is not one of them, although
See,
I love
that's
graphic
somebody that the graphic designer works for Bay Street.
design. Yes,
Oh, see, that's something else that goes into the program.
that's true. That's true. The program itself.
Yeah.
The designer of the set, and the designer of the costumes, and the designer of the lighting. So there's much design involved, which is another thing. I
Well,
love
it's
about
very nice. It's clever how they hold the curtain back, and
Yes. You see the
curious
beach.
what's behind it.
Yes.